The Accessible Canada Act was passed in June 2019. It is meant to remove and prevent barriers to accessibility in all areas of federal jurisdiction. The Act specifically identifies 7 areas for addressing accessibility: employment, communications, procurement of goods, services, and facilities, information and communications technology, the built environment, program and service design and delivery, and transportation. Accessibility is about an interaction between a person and their environment, and a person with an impairment experiences disability when they are faced with a barrier. A barrier is anything that hinders the full and equal participation in society of persons with a physical, mental, intellectual, learning, communication, or sensory impairment, or a functional limitation. The Accessible Canada Act means that PSPC must, as the largest public buyer of goods and services in the country, assure accessible procurement. What does accessible procurement mean? It means we should always consider accessibility requirements for all procurements. Include accessibility criteria as part of the specifications unless not applicable. Ensure documentation is on file confirming accessibility has been considered. In October 2019, the new accessibility requirements of the Treasury Board contracting policy came into effect. It requires client departments to include accessibility when they buy on behalf of the Government of Canada. It says that client departments have to include accessibility criteria when specifying requirements for goods and services and ensure that deliverables incorporate accessibility features. It means developing inclusive and accessible environments from the start, rather than seeking accommodations after the fact. We have to be inclusive by design and accessible by default. We must work to prevent barriers, provide accessible programs and services to Canadians, and create inclusive workplaces for public servants. The TBS contracting policy also states that if a department determines that it is not appropriate to include accessibility criteria as part of commodity specifications, or if it is unable to obtain goods or services that comply, the client or technical authority must ensure that clear justification is on file. Why are these changes important? Because persons with a disability are your co-workers and your clients. According to the Canadian Survey on Disability conducted by Statistics Canada, an estimated 1 in 5 Canadians, approximately 6.2 million people aged 15 years and over, reported having at least one disability. 24% of women and 20% of men reported having at least one disability. 13% of youth aged 15 to 24, 20% of adults aged 25 to 64 years, and 38% of seniors aged 65 years and over reported having at least one disability. Even those of us who do not report having a disability can expect to experience a temporary or mild disability at some point in our lives. We could find ourselves on crutches, develop arthritis, or experience an episodic disability. In thinking about accessibility, we are potentially thinking about every Canadian at some point in their life. The 4 most commonly reported disability types are pain-related, flexibility, mobility, mental health-related. Other disability types include seeing, hearing, dexterity, learning, memory, and developmental. Going forward, it is always important to remember to be clear about end users' accessibility requirements. That, including accessibility from the beginning, can cost less than adapting, modifying, or replacing a product or service later on. That we should never assume accessibility does not apply. As an example, in producing this video, a range of creative attributes were taken into consideration. Colors with good contrast were utilized. Font sizes and styles were reviewed. Fast flashing content was avoided. Closed captioning was implemented, and a text-based transcription of the video was made available. Please contact the Accessible Procurement Resource Center through their general mailbox for any questions on accessible procurement.